And then there's some big sheet goods behind here that are, that don't fit, they haven't been cut down yet.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah, yeah, there you go. Yep.
So they just
Yep.
move a bench out a little bit and you've got 6 inches and that's a good place to store tall stuff. Forget what else was on my list. I get carried away. This was, all of these were a project, when I first started woodworking, this is what I did. I didn't make furniture. And then I joined the guild and it turned me into furniture. But I've made dozens and dozens of these kind of things, and mostly I just store them, dust them. They're fun. This was a commission, though. I had one of these on display at Rockler for years in the window, and some civil engineer came along and said, I got to have that truck. How much is it? And he bought it. And a year later, he called me back and he said, I really need a backhoe. You just got to have a backhoe. Well, these are plans from a place called Toys and Joys up in Seattle area. So, and they had a backhoe. So I did learn on the very first project, which was a bulldozer, never build one. There's so many little parts.
Oh,
and everyone has to be measured and has to be tooled. Yeah. So I usually build 5. I said, well, I don't need 4 more backhoes, so I'll build 2. But this was a Paul Newman experiment from Paul Newman, the Chain Gang movie.
Oh, yeah, Cool Hand Luke.
Cool Hand Luke, yeah.
Sure.
He says, I can eat 50 eggs.
Yeah.
I says, I can build 20 tractors. And I built 20 of these. I'll never do that again. God, it took forever. This little tractor, for example, these are all different pieces. There's the outside, which is a big hub, and the inside, which isn't. There's the left and right cut. So there's the outside cut on the hub here and the outside cut on the hub. So you can't just make 20 times 4 would be 80 pieces. They had to make 20 pieces of each one. So, and all of these, the plans for this are from a different company. So they have lots of little detail, little toothpicks. Toothpick is 3/32 diameter, by the way.
Good to know.
Very precise. You can pull a 3/32 drill out and put it in, and they make little spark plugs. So I have 18 of these. I've given away a couple, and I think I donated a couple to the guild for raffles here a couple months ago. CJ was out, and I had a soft moment that I need to get rid of some of this stuff. So anyway, that's that, and furniture is not what I do.
And this is a separate compressor.
Yeah, so this is my sharpening center, and it's combined with air tools. So I've got in the combination here, a whole bunch of nail guns that are used. The pin nailer, I use that occasionally. I don't tend to like to use metal in furniture. It's just more of a purity thing with screws and pin nails. But boy, there's nothing like pin nailers for attaching trim. And when you sand over it, it fills a little hole, and you never know what's in there if you're in more of a hurry, or you can't clamp it. So the compressors for that, the Tormek and the grinder are and I've got some whetstones, and like my dust collection system that isn't perfectly perfect, neither is my sharpening. I wait till they're really dull, I hit the hammer harder. Finally I'll sit down and spend a whole day sharpening everything up, and it is certainly nice.
Yeah.
When that plane and the chisel just work.
And the system, I've never used one of these. You like the Tarmac or whatever?
I like it. I don't know if I'd buy it today. I don't have a reason not to, but at the time I wasn't working at Rockler, and Denise just sold me on it. She said, it's expensive. It's one of the more expensive systems. But it comes, it doesn't come with, but you buy a lot of jigs for it, for just about every tool. It's wonderful on lathe tools that have, weird grinds on them. And I had very good luck with it. I like it, yeah. Slow speed, whetstone. So I'd probably buy that again. A lot of our guild folks, I think, like hand sharpening.
Yeah.
certainly
That's
can't
a
argue.
skill.
Yeah,
There's so many different systems for that.
yeah.
Paul Sellers, which one the Ariel likes in particular? I can't remember a name that he mentioned. And then there's the Cosman, Rob Cosman,
Okay.
which I've tried to do. And I'm not where I need to be.
Yeah.
In fact, is it Ken Hawk that puts on the sharpening clinic?
Yeah, he's one. Larry Wade does also. Ken Hall, yeah.
Ken Hall, yeah. I should probably sit on those and get their views on it.
Yeah,
Because there's so many, like in woodworking, so many ways to get the job done.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
I usually hand sharpen plain irons and chisels. They're usually not that dull. I don't let them get that sloppy. This grinder does a hollow grind
Right.
because it's round, which is okay, but it's just somehow easier with the those little straight tools to do it by hand. You know, you can use a jig to get the angle set, so you don't
Right.
have to keep fussing with that.
which I do.
Yeah.
I don't feel comfortable enough in figuring the hand angle. Like
Yeah.
Cosman says you can do it, but I'm not there, so I just use the jigs.
Well, like Tormic's method for getting the angle is you paint the edge of the blade of the cutting edge with not a Marcolot, yeah, and so it's all black, and then as you touch it on whatever you're grinding, of course you'll see the shiny spot, and you'll know immediately whether you're flat on the angle or
Oh,
not.
yeah, good point.
It works well.
Good idea.
Let's see over on the other side. This is, by the way, is one of my pride and joys, even though I entered this in a guild show. It's a knockoff of a Gerstner toolbox, similar to the Sears, and it's made out of one board. And I use like every inch of that one board. I love the lumber in it. The only thing is these drawers, you know, they stick going in and out. Well, when I made it, I was much younger and much less experienced, and I pre-cut everything, and then I glued it all together. And I entered it in the show, and it didn't even get mentioned. And as I asked Ariel, give me a rundown, a critique of this. So we were out in the parking lot on the tailgate of my truck, and he said, well, you know, that joint's here, there's some glue showing here, and he just tore it apart. Perfect, you know, it's what I needed. And he said, so he was opening and playing with it. He said, you pre-cut all the parts, didn't you? How would he know that? It's because they don't fit well. And that's where I learned, his secret is when you're building cabinet things, build from the outside in. You build the box, and the box never will be exactly the dimension that you expected it to be. Instead of 16 inches, it's 15 and 15/16. So then you build
adjust.
the next thing, yeah, and you work your way inward. I've built stuff like that ever since. It works a lot better.
When I put together the miter saw workstation, I think it was Chris Matthews had plans, and it's sizable, and it's got some features on it that I really like. But now that the box has been there, there's 3 big spaces, and as I go now to put drawers in, I use a tape measure and got as accurate as I thought I needed to be,
Yeah.
but the dimensions side to side aren't precise.
Yeah,
So now I have to adjust and make either shims or put some other additional spacing in
Right.
there to get it where it needs to be to actually put drawers and slides and so on.
yeah,
I mean, I could just cut dados and put a slider on the side
yeah.
and put wax on it, and maybe that'll do the job. But,
But yeah, it's a workaround.
yeah, it's a compromise from what I had in mind.
Right.
So, but that makes sense, and you just described what I'm up against. So,
Well, I've got some fairly complex furniture upstairs that thank God I knew about. I learned that trick from him. You know, they're like a curio cabinet, you know, 6 foot tall, this big, and you build it, working your way inward, and it all works, it all fits. So.
great sense.
A quick observation about the router table. This is an evolution. It started as a rocker router table like the one over there with the Formica particle board top, and it had the standard 2.5, 2.25 horse router hanging on it. And one day I was talking with some students here in the class about how flat the top is and should it be flat, and I said, well, of course, got a straight edge out and put it on mine, and there's a 1/8" gap underneath it. The weight of the router over time, the way I suspended it, not the way they, you use it on their system, made it go. So one of the tool shows, I found that this is a table saw extension, and I tore the thing apart and mounted it in here, and this is because that's how wide the cabinet was. Somehow it got to be this tall because that's the length of the wood I had to make the legs out of. I love it.
Sure.
High.
You're never bending over.
Yeah.
You don't spend as much time at the table saw bending over, so you don't tend to notice it. But here, I mean, you can spend a half an hour making lots of parts and making lots of cuts. I bought this at the tool show when they used to come to Portland, the Incra positioning fence, so I could do those inside dovetail, super fancy things they do. I don't know if you've ever seen those demos. I've never made one of them. It's never been anything but a precision fence. All the templates and stuff are stored down underneath. But the precision fence is so incredible because it's repeatable. When this releases from here, there's a threaded rod in there that's a 1/32 inch pitch. So if I move that back just imperceptibly a little bit and catch the next one, and then halfway up it's not locked, this is 1/1000 of an inch. So
Okay.
so if you need to move it out of the way and put it back, I'll just put a piece of tape down, move it back. It's exactly where it was. If my cut is a little bit wrong, like maybe 8/1000ths, I want it to be a little bit closer. I just go click, 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 click. I don't have to like tap the fence, make another trial cut. So I just love it. It's expensive. It was, at that time, I think it was a $300 system, but I'd probably buy it again.
So you have repeatability. You make a part, you need to and you move the fence. You need to make another one just like it.
Yeah.
So you can come back, and so you've changed the dimension. Now you can go back to where you were,
Yeah.
just with the how many turns you made and so forth, and you'll wind up with identical dimension.
Identical, absolutely. I don't tend to use this very often. Once you get it zeroed against like the outer side of a bit, the bits are all in incremental lengths, such that they're in multiples of a 32nd of an inch. Let's put it that way. Halves, 5/8, and so on. So because the shaft in here is a 32nd inch shaft, if I'm working with a 1/2 inch bit and I want to go to a 1/4 inch bit, I'd have to use a tape measure or something to find the right spot. But I could move it to the right spot and re-engage that, and that would be like maybe 6 clicks of a 32nd, or 6 32nds, or a little over 1/4 inch, and it'll be exact.
The best fix I've come up with is to take the stock that I've milled already, and I've changed the setup,
Yeah.
and to take that stock and insert that between the bit and the fence.
Right.
And it seems to get me,
It'll get you pretty close.
and then you can adjust. Always try to leave a little bit extra on it, so rather
Right.
cut it proud, so
Right.
you can bring it back if you need to.
Yeah. And the lift too. Where's the crank? This one's a little more expensive because it's for the 3.5 horse router, but they're not too bad. But that's 2/1000ths of an inch, so you can like set the height drop this down until it's flush, for example, with something that you can feel, and then zero this, and then if you want to go up 1/8 of an inch, it's 1/16 inch per turn, so 1, 2, and put it on the zero mark. And the same with making adjustments, measure it with a caliper and say, it's 4/1000ths or 12/1000ths too tall. Well, 12/1000ths too tall is that much. I guarantee you won't have to measure the second cut.
That's correct.
It's dead on.
Did you have to have this milled out to accommodate the?
No, this,
This opening was there?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and it was for this size plate.
Uh-huh.
The company selling these had a bunch of them. So, you know, smaller plates, bigger plates. So I was lucky enough to buy the part that I needed. So precision router tables, like indispensable.
Are these, if I wanted to incorporate the metal table, how much money would I bring to get that?
Boy, I don't remember. It wasn't the plate itself was not that expensive. Seems like $100 maybe.
Oh, okay.
You know, this is more like $250 or so, and that was $350, $300. I mean, and it's only steel now because I could. At the time this was available. It was perfect timing for rebuilding this whole thing. And another feature of my shop that I've written about and preached a lot is like, well, this isn't so obvious because it's like a piece of furniture, but you know, everything about the router is stored here. It didn't used to be. Of course, there'd be a cabinet over there with router bits in it and so on.
Do you have dust collection via here?
Actually, it's
Everything's underneath, so you don't have anything on the surface to. Yeah, that's kind of what I got.
Yeah.
Kind of like that.
Obviously, it's working really well.
Well, yeah, because that makes a ramp.
Well, yeah, you're right. It's true. But it turns out there's a 2-inch hole in the. There was a T back here until yesterday.
Oh, okay.
And the T had a fitting that came up and hooked on here. Well, it evacuates this, but it isn't all that effective, and I finally just got rid of it. The biggest thing that you need air in here for is heat. That router at 3.5 horsepower, if you leave it on for half an hour, it'll burn itself out. It's so hot. The dust, you know, some of it goes down, most of it goes out. So it isn't that effective as a dust collector.
Well, that's why I asked, because mine is out of masonite and the fence, and I have all sorts of stops and little shield, PVC shield over the cutting area. But it's actually built so that there's a hose back here.
Okay, yeah.
As well as the hose on the side. So I'm getting a lot of stuff off the top as well as the stuff that drops down.
In fact, like with a funnel collector back here.
Kind of like that,
Yeah, that's a lot more effective. This isn't because the opening's so small.
Yeah.
And it's got to go around the corner and down. So this usually winds up getting all packed full of sawdust over time. It is hollow, but yeah, I miss that.
Okay.
Anything you can do to get some of the dust off the floor is helpful. So back to cabinets, you know, that fits the lathe, that one underneath there. Every tool pretty much in this shop has a custom-made cabinet underneath it. And I finally get all the tools for that, or all the accessories for that tool with it. And it's just nice. This one's got big turning tools, chucks and measuring tools. And so that took time to discover, you know, instead of having separate standalone racks.
Oh, yeah.
And then have all the space under the tools wasted.
That just makes infinite sense.
That one's missing. It needs a cabinet.
Aha.
Project.
We're never done building it.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm looking at cabinetry. What do I need? Where would I store stuff? But this gives me a whole new perspective on it, having all the pertinent tools as a part of the station itself.
Yeah.
That just makes great sense.
Now, one that doesn't lend itself to that would be the drill press. And so this cabinet is only a few months old, but it was the same problem where I had drill stuff everywhere. And I love building these doors. So I didn't realize I had that many drill accessories until I got them all together. And I said, that's a big cabinet. And so it needs to stand by itself, you know, and hang on the wall. And
Sure.
if you can tuck it in close, it doesn't eat up wall space too much.
Right.
Clamp racks, I chose this system just because there's 2 or 3 different ways to do that. This kills a lot of wall space, but it doesn't take the floor space that I consider more premium with a rack, roll-around rack. Other people would prefer the roll-around rack and say, I need the wall space instead. My hand planes, you'd think I wasn't very proud of them. I've got to get them out and hanging where they belong, you know,
Yeah.
where they look like.
Yeah, I do a lot of the YouTube study,
Yeah.
And you see some guys that really have it dressed up nice. You know,
Yeah.
everything is all in order. But I don't think that's a typical shop.
Probably
There's
not.
one fellow that I like to watch is Mark Spagnolo. He goes by the Wood Whisperer, and he's a young guy, but he was a former educator. So when he scripted his presentation, and his wife helps him with that, he seems to me to be very knowledgeable. And you look at his, and everything is dressed in. And he's probably got the camera crew, and people like a cooking show.
Yeah, yeah.
Who cleans that gas grill, or
Right,
who
right.
cleans that cooktop? Well, there's a staff over there doing that. That's not typical.
That's true, yeah. And I use them occasionally. Lee Johnson was my one of my idols. Did either of you know him? He's passed away several years ago. A hand tool guy, dyed in the wool, builds $50,000 pieces of furniture. Incredible man. And I would have to call him every once in a while and say, "I did a hand tool job today, Lee," and he laughed. Not sure what else. These are all tips of things I've sneaked up on over time. I have my favorite table saw mechanism. By the way, if either of you want either of those, you're welcome to them. And this, in fact, this stuff too. I can't stand to throw this away. This is a table system that just wasn't working for me. But it's like too cool to throw away. So
Well, we say it didn't work. Well, where did it fall short?
well, attaching the top.
Okay.
This is the rest of the table, and I'm going to make straight. Legs. So I did this because I had to make an oval because I never had made one. This is veneered on part of the board, so this was going to become some kind of a table.
I see. Okay. I see. Yep.
And I just finally gave up. Said I have finally met my match. And so I'm going to just turn some old Queen Anne or whatever you call them style legs and make this a little more delicate table.
Right.
But where I was going was you guys both probably have crosscut sled, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can't live without it.
And I actually don't have a table saw, and I was wondering, since I have limited space, whether to use something like a track saw
Yeah.
as a substitute for a table saw. I'm used to a table saw, but it's
Space.
takes
Yeah.
up a lot of space.
You're right. And I know only one person who has a track saw, and he likes it.
He doesn't have a table saw.
Correct.
And I'm seeing more of that. Of like
Substitution.
Craig makes one. Of course, what's the high-end German company? Festool.
That's still, yeah.
And in fact, that Spagnola I was mentioning, he's gone to that a lot more. The track saw. He has Festool, and I would look into it. I mean, if I had limited space, it'd be worth considering.
It's just different, yeah. I mean, they weren't so much an option when I bought these tools. The Grizzly is new a couple of years ago. I started out life with a Sears radial arm and used that for quite a few years here. In fact, I used it for 40 years safely. And then bought a Jet table saw, and I liked it, except for dust collection was horrible and a couple other features, but I still used it for 7 or 8 years, and then went to this one that it's a 220 volt system. I like it. I could stall a Jet all the time. Doing heavy ripping. Can't stall this one. Other jigs. The table saw is one of my favorite tools, just because. So I use this a lot. A taper jig.
For tapering.
Yep.
And two kinds of miter jigs. This one, commercial, is Rocklers. Super neat because this is dead on accurate. So you can be within a fraction of a tenth of a degree for doing miter cuts like picture frames. Anyway. Oh, We were talking. I think we were fish sticks. Mine have all seen a saw blade.
Mm-hmm.
You know, doing thin cut things. So I don't know what else to tell you. I love it down here.
Especially on a hot day.
Yeah, yeah. I noticed Jim Spitzer. He always sent a note to the people doing the tour and said, "Tell people to come early because my shop's not air conditioned."
Oh,
I said,
yeah.
"Oh, come here anytime later in the day." Yeah.
Yeah.
And being underground it helps a lot.
Oh, it's like a wine cellar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, the first year we were here, they shut off all of the central system, and the temperature stayed at 65, 66 degrees year round. This is the only exposed part, and it manages to be enough mass everywhere else that it's just cool. The one thing I love, it's at Christmas especially, most of these tools all have extra lighting. Some of them, built in, like the drill press, which is nice. And then I add these clamp lamps. I don't know where I wound up with all these extras, 5 of them. But normally there's one in every tool. So you come down here at night and turn these lights off and all those lights on. It's just magic.
Very nice.
It's just magic. I just sit here and drink
Only
a
a
glass of
woodworker.
So today, with my vision kind of becoming more limited,
Oh, yeah.
also got a couple of those.
Yeah,
Now I can see.
yeah.
Have a cookie, by the way, if you
Oh,
want.
by the way, you bet.
And my wife brought down some, what's in here, either water or, some water.
Are these LED or
Yeah.
is that bright?